Hi everyone, Chris Saremba here, and welcome to this little talk on nutrition. This is the first in a series of videos I'm going to do on nutrition, and this one is going to explain the principles I use in calculations. So for me, nutrition always starts with numbers, and it's not complicated numbers, but I'm going to go through them with you during this particular video. And the next video will show you how I translate those numbers into specific foods for different times of the day on an ideal nutrition approach. So we're going to start off today by looking at numbers and how the numbers control what you should eat and what your choices you should make in terms of your daily diet. I'm looking at this for somebody who wants to get fit, who wants to get healthy, probably has already started that process and already does a fair amount of exercise anyway. So I'm assuming that you do at least some exercise most days, whether it's cardio, whether it's weight training, ideally a bit of both. So I'm assuming you're fairly active in coming up with some of these numbers. So the first number to start with is look at your daily energy input. How much energy do you want to take in? Now, energy is measured in calories or kilojoules if you're foreign, but let's use calories. Calories have kind of become out of favour with some nutritionists these days. I'm not exactly sure why. To me, calories are a great way of measuring energy. I don't know any other way of measuring pure energy in terms of the content of the food that you eat, the nutrition you eat. So I'm going to stick with calories, or as I say, kilojoules if you prefer. Let's look at calories though. And calories are, to me, the way that we can measure both input and output. I'm not going to look too much at the output, just going to look at the input. So how do you determine how many calories you need on a daily basis? Good question. Well, to me, the number one place you start with is how much you weigh, because your weight determines your calorie usage as you go around doing your daily tasks. You need more energy to move if you're heavier. You need less energy to move if you're lighter. So starting off with your weight. And the way I start with this, and I developed the formula that works for me and for certainly all of my clients, and I think it works for the majority of people. It's very, very simple too. You start off with your weight in kilos, and using me as an example, I'm now 75 kilos. So you start off with your weight in kilos, divide that by 3, then multiply by 100, and then you get your daily calorie amount, which is going to keep you more or less at the same weight. It's a very rough approximation. It works for most people. It doesn't work particularly at the high end and at the low end. So if you're very heavy or very light, it doesn't work. But for me, 75 kilos, we'll do that as a worked example. 75 kilos, if I do the maths on that, so I'm going to divide that by 3, 75 becomes 25. Multiply that by 100, it's 2,500. So 2,500 is my calories. It's as simple as that. If I was a heavier chap at 90 kilos, divide that by 3, it's 30. Multiplied by 100 is 3,000 or 3,000, and there's 3,000 as my daily calorie amount. And that's to keep the body at much the same weight as it is at the moment, assuming I'm doing a fair amount of exercise. It's a very rough guide, doesn't work for everybody, but it works for most, I've found. So having done that stage of working out how many calories, so for me it's 2,500, the next thing is, do I want to change my weight? Do I want to go up in weight? Do I want to go down in weight? Or am I happy to stay as I am? Well, at the moment I'm 75 kilos. I'd like to be 72. It's not a big change, but I'd like to lose maybe 3 kilos. I used to be 72. I put on a few kilos in the past couple of weeks. I've had probably far too many nights out, far too many days off the standard nutrition. So I need to correct it. So I do now need to go back down to 72. So I need to cut the calories a bit. So I modify that last number we've calculated by adding 10% to that number if you want to put weight on, and taking 10% off if you want to take weight off. So I was 2,500 calories, if you remember. I'm going to take 10% of that off because I want to lose some weight. So 10% of 2,500 is 250. If I take that 250 off the 2,500, I get a new total of 2,250. So 2,250 is my calories per day until I reach my target weight, which is 72 kilos. Then I'll do the calculation again based upon 72 kilos. So that's how I work out how many calories I want. It's my weight divided by 3 times 100, and take off 10% to lose weight, add 10% to gain weight. That's the first stage. The second stage is taking that number and doing something with it. Now, calories aren't all the same. Calories are made up of different food groups, and the main food groups, the macronutrients, are proteins, carbohydrates and fats. As you may know, it's not important for you to know this, but as you may know, there are 4 calories in a gram of protein, 4 calories in a gram of carbs, and 9 calories in a gram of fats. So you can use those numbers to do some calculations. But first of all, let's think about percentages. We've got a number of calories we want. For me, it's 2250. How am I going to break that down? I need to break it down into a certain percentage of protein, a certain percentage of carbs, and a certain percentage of fats. So I've tried lots and lots of different options on this, and I've spoken to lots of people who've tried alternatives as well. And the one that I've settled on, which I use for myself now, and again I recommend to all my clients, is a 40-40-20 split of proteins, carbs and fat. So 40% of calories from protein, 40% of calories from carbs, and 20% of calories from fats. I've tried, as I say, a number of different variants on that, including higher fat and lower fat, higher protein and lower protein. But to me, that works really well. 40-40-20, 40% protein, 40% carbs, and 20% fats. So using those numbers we had before, of 4 calories in a gram of protein, 4 calories in a gram of carbs, and 9 calories in a gram of fat, doing a fair amount of maths on that, I've worked out that those numbers, the 40-40-20 ratio, applied to my daily 2250, works out to 225 grams of protein a day, 225 grams of carbs a day, and 50 grams of fat per day. Let's have a closer look at the maths involved, again using myself as an example. For my daily requirement of 2250 calories, 40% of protein is 900 calories. Dividing that by 4, as there's 4 calories in a gram of protein, that's 225 grams in total. And the numbers are exactly the same for carbs, leading to a total of 225 grams of carbs as my daily requirement. Fat's different. I want 20% of my calories from fat, that's 450 calories of the 2250. Dividing that by 9, as there's 9 calories in a gram of fat, that's 50 grams of fat that I need per day. And those are my totals of the macronutrients I need each day to make my targets. Your targets will be different, of course, depending upon your initial calorie amount. So now we have the fact that I have a requirement of 2,250 calories a day, and I want to break that down into 40% protein, 40% carbs, 20% fats, which means 225 grams of both protein and carbs and 50 grams of fats. I'm going to break that down into 5 main meals of the day, plus a 6th one I'll come to in a second. The 5 main meals are breakfast, lunch and dinner, 3 big meals if you like, and 2 smaller meals, a mid-morning snack and a mid-afternoon snack as well. So 5 meals. Then the 6th meal I mentioned is a special post-workout meal, which is mainly a protein shake, and I'll come to that in a second, but that comes after the main workout of the day, main gym workout of the day. So 5 main meals: breakfast, lunch and dinner, with mid-morning snack between the first 2, mid-afternoon snack between the second 2. So let's think about those meals and when you're going to have them. I'm actually a massive fan of having a 12-hour period every day when you don't eat. And that's overnight, obviously, but most people don't not eat for 12 hours. It's usually much less than that. But I think full 12-hour fast overnight is great. It's a great way of using up body fat. When you're asleep and when you don't eat overnight, it's the body's primary fat burning period during every diurnal cycle, during every day. The body uses fat as its fuel for the energy overnight, for both replenishment, for restoration of activity, and for rest, and for keeping the body working while you're asleep, and indeed before you have your first meal. So a 12-hour fast overnight, which is then broken when you have your break fast in the morning. So combining my 5 daily meals with my 12-hour overnight fast, I get quite a nice sum where each meal is at 3-hour intervals. So for example, if I have my breakfast at 8 in the morning, I can have a mid-morning snack at 11, then lunch at 2, mid-afternoon snack at 5, and dinner at 8. So if you look at those times again, breakfast was at 8 in the morning and dinner was at 8 in the evening. And therefore I then have approximately 12 hours overnight to get my 12 hours overnight fasted before breakfast the next morning. So that's the way I try to structure my day, with 5 meals at 3-hourly intervals. Of course it changes. I mean, real life comes in occasionally, can't possibly do that all the time, but this to me is the ideal way of doing it. So let's look at those 2250 calories. It doesn't really matter hugely how I break those 2250 calories up amongst those 5 meals, or the 6th meal including the protein shake I'm going to come to in a second. But I like to keep it fairly even. I like to keep the carbs mainly, if I can, towards the morning in breakfast or in the post-workout nutrition. So having done that, very approximately, as a rough guide, I mean, this is something I don't keep to very closely, but approximately that 2250 breaks down into 3 main meals: breakfast, lunch and dinner, each of 500 calories. And the 2 snacks are 250 calories each, and that comes to 2000. And that leaves 250 for my meal 6, which, as you remember, is my post-workout meal. So very approximately, I've got 500 calories for breakfast, then 3 hours later 250 calories for a mid-morning snack, then 3 hours later 500 calories for lunch, then 3 hours later 250 calories for my mid-afternoon snack, and then 3 hours later 500 calories for my evening dinner. That leaves 250 calories for the post-workout snack, and that I have whenever I have the workout. My weights workout is usually sometime between about 12 noon and 6 or 7 p.m. Sometimes it can be as late as 9 or 10. Whatever it is, I'll have that as an extra feed, an extra refeed, an extra meal after the main weights workout of the day. So that's how my 2250 calories gets broken down. So we were talking again that 2250 calories being 225 grams of protein, 225 grams of carbs and 50 grams of fat. Well, of course you can, if you want to go to the next stage of this, break that down into each meal. And I like to have a fairly even flow of protein over the day. So the protein is pro rata with the size of the calories for each meal. And the same for the fat. Carbs I like to load a little more over breakfast and a little less in the evening meal, because carbs can have a tendency to become body fat overnight. So I tend to eat fewer carbs late at night and have more in the morning when I've got the whole day to use up the energy that comes from them. And you also need carbs after the workout to replenish the energy that's been used from the muscle glycogen during the workout. So that's it really. Next thing is talk about meals I have to make up these, and that'll be in the next video. But as a quick summary of where we got to, we've looked at the number of calories that you need, and by doing some mathematics. Then we've converted that into grams of proteins, carbs and fats, and then we've thought about how we consume those protein, carbs and fats over the course of a day, ideally leaving a 12-hour period without eating overnight. So it's all pretty complicated and it's been fairly rushed through. If I'm doing this as a lecture, it takes about an hour, so you've had the benefit of it much quicker than that. But it's all on my website in more detail. Look at fitnessover50.co.uk, and under the nutrition tab you'll see information relating to Chris's maths or Chris's numbers, and how I explain, and in there I explain in more detail about how those numbers are calculated and how the results are derived. So look at my website for more details, fitnessover50.co.uk, and look on the nutrition tab. And keep an eye out for the next video in this series, which is going to show you how I take those numbers and actually translate them into real meals, how I make that 2250 calories work for me with those particular macronutrient breakdowns, with that 40% protein, 40% carbs and 20% fat over the course of an ideal day. So I'll see you then.